YouTube, it's your boy Alex, man, back in another video. So we got the flight mic today, and being watching this video about Zion Williamson and if he's gonna get traded soon. I honestly think he needs to get traded soon. I mean, I think his time in New Orleans is just about over. I mean, I don't know what else he could expect is gonna happen out of this, because his career has just been so far is just injury ridden and just drama filled. So hopefully he can find a new start. I mean, just maybe like a contender, probably preferably he's probably gonna go to like a lower tier team that's gonna be able to give New Orleans a lot of draft capital in return. So we're gonna see what the flight mic has to say for today. If you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe down below as we're on the road to 6K. Let's get right into it, man.
That Zion Williamson is not close to a return. He's still a ways away, and sources tell me they are still going to be
the fact that New Orleans has a weight clause in Zion's contract is just crazy. Like, what type of player have you guys seen, like, in at least sport? Well, I don't know if I've ever seen sports history like there's like had to have been an additional detail in like a player's contract in which you have to like follow these stipulations of the contract. I mean, that's kind of crazy, but I'm not really surprised that New Orleans did it, though. I mean, Zion's just not really been the most focused when it comes to his health, which has honestly just been the detriment of honestly his career so far. It's just been his health. So hopefully he can get it under control, though, because he's a special player when he's focused, for sure.
There's multiple sources confirming it. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest and greatest NBA news to your devices. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro.
And I also saw that New Orleans is planning on trading like BI, Zion, and CJ at some point. Like, that's just wild.
We made money
they're planning on giving away like the majority of their entire core.
All Nikola Jokic needs is one
we'll see what they do
for a square to hit. So we just have to pair this with one more square to 3x our money. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The summer of 2019 was significant for the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, they were so locked in on getting Zion with the #1 overall pick that they even told the Los Angeles Lakers that if the draft lottery had them winning the #1 overall pick, they expected it to be traded to the Pelicans in return for Anthony Davis. And lo and behold, the Lakers would get the #4 pick and the Pelicans would get the #1 pick. And following that, the Pelicans were on fire. I mean, not only did they get the opportunity to select Zion Williamson, this uber athletic, big-bodied forward built as the next coming of LeBron James, but they were also able to trade their disgruntled star Anthony Davis in return for...
Could you guys imagine if Anthony Davis wasn't the way that he was and just wanted to ask out for trade? Like, you pair Anthony Davis and Zion, that would be a scary front court for sure.
Contender almost instantaneously. And to be honest, back then, it wasn't that crazy of a take. The Pelicans core was viewed in the same lens and perspective as the early 2010s OKC Thunder. Zion was supposed to be Kevin Durant, Brandon Ingram was gonna be Russell Westbrook, and Lonzo Ball was gonna be Serge Ibaka? But you get my point. Lonzo Ball was the prototypical pass-first guard with a brilliant basketball IQ, and he happened to completely recreate his shooting form. Brandon Ingram was supposed to be the next coming
I'm glad Lonzo's trying to get back on the court and get healthy again. I just want to see Lonzo on the court because he's just such a difference maker for that Chicago Bulls team, especially in terms of their defense. And so I just hope that Zoe can stay healthy for sure.
Now here's where it gets pretty interesting. It's what the Pelicans did with these players that ended up shaping their eventual roster. Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Didi Louzada would all be included in a trade package being sent to the Portland Trailblazers in return for CJ McCollum during the 2022 trade deadline. And you already got the idea of where Zion Williamson was in relation to his feelings for the New Orleans Pelicans. Because on top of that, the big story was the fact that Zion Williamson didn't even call CJ McCollum to to welcome him to the New Orleans Pelicans. Hell, his ex-teammate JJ Redick had to call him out for this behavior.
I get that he's hurt and away from the team, but you just traded for one of the 50 best players in the league. Reach out and say hello. This is a pattern of behavior with Zion that we are seeing again and again. And look, I was his teammate. I can describe him as a detached teammate.
At this point, Lonzo Ball was already long gone. Yes, he worked on his game, but he left in the 2021 offseason to join the Chicago Bulls. Jackson Hayes found his way to the Los Angeles Lakers, and all you're really left with is Dyson Daniels, who would get traded to the Atlanta Hawks for DeJounte Murray. Now, the craziest part about this is when this trade went down in the offseason, I said that the New Orleans Pelicans got a huge steal. Being able to trade Dyson Daniels for one of the premier two-way guards in the NBA who's on an undervalued contract was a great move for them. But it seems like everything that the Pelicans did automatically
that Dyson's
turned into garbage.
That Dyson Daniels deal, in hindsight, I didn't think it'd be so even, because like Dyson's actually been a menace on defense to start the year. So I mean, I don't know if New Orleans necessarily completely won this trade though, because like he improved tremendously. So we'll see in a couple of months down the line if this actually benefited New Orleans in the way that they think it did.
4 points per game and currently leads the NBA in steals. I'm not kidding, with 3 steals per game. And Dyson Daniels said it best. It's almost as if New Orleans is cursed. He said it a few days ago. That organization's cursed. Every year there's something new. I'm happy I'm not there anymore. The curse, man. I had like 4 or 5 ankle injuries down there as well. There's something down in that water there or something. They got hamstrings, they got knees, they got concussions and stuff as well. They get everything down there. I don't know what it is. Playing hard, I guess. And this is pretty much what's been going on with the New Orleans Pelicans in the Zion Williamson era. This team would literally make the right decisions over and over again, but they would only finish 13th in the Western Conference in Zion's rookie year. Zion would play in 61 games in his sophomore year, and the Pelicans would finish in 11th place. He'd missed the entire 2021-22 season, but the Pelicans were still a playoff team. Zion somehow became an all-star despite playing in 29 games in the 2022-23 season, and the Pelicans finished in 9th place. And then we have last year where Zion played in a career-high 70 games, and the Pelicans would get swept in the first round. It's gotta be so frustrating when you just take a look at this team as a whole. They've had some hits on their draft picks, like in the form of Herb Jones, and now we're at the point where CJ McCollum's getting older, Brandon Ingram's contract situation is in flux, and once again Zion Williamson is injured when it seems like the furthest thing from his mind is actually the game of basketball. I mean, a few weeks ago we made a video on Zion Williamson and how he currently looks. The man is literally using chicken sandwiches as B-roll as he's getting a brand new tattoo. We're not going to go into his weight too much because we've discussed it ad nauseum, but it was obviously enough of a concern because when Zion Williamson's rookie contract expired, the Pelicans put a weight requirement and an injury requirement in his contract.
Zion has all the potential in the world, man. He just needs to just stay focused on just being on the court as much as possible, because it's just hurting the team that he's just not able to be out there and competing with his guys. So I mean, you just gotta get focused, bro.
Contract starting with the 2025-26 season are no longer guaranteed, which means the Pelicans could waive Zion Williamson after this season with no financial ramifications, though rival team executives believe that would only happen in extreme circumstances. I mean, after all, this is a once-in-a-generation type prospect, and there are many theories about whether or not this is something that Zion has done intentionally. And while I could understand he originally wanted to play for the New York Knicks, and he looked very frustrated when the Knicks didn't get the #1 overall pick in the draft lottery, or kind of looked frustrated. I don't know, you tell me. Does this look like a man that is happy to be selected by the Pelicans? At the same time, I don't think any player would ever go to these extremes to try to get himself traded to New York, especially when you consider the fact that the Knicks weren't the team that they currently are when Zion Williamson was a rookie. They didn't sign Jalen Brunson until the 2022 offseason, and they didn't really become a destination until the 2023 offseason. So I don't think Zion wanted to play for the Knicks that badly to the point where he would go out and tank his value. In the past, Zion was interviewed by Gilbert Arenas about why it was so hard to maintain weight.
Is it hard to diet at your age? Be honest. Since it's you, I'll be real. There are times when I will say that, man, it's hard, man. Like, it feel like all the money in the world, man.
And it's gone to a brand new extreme now. Just a month ago, Shams said this about Zion Williamson's injuries.
I'm told that Zion Williamson is not close to a return. He's still a ways away, and sources tell me he has received multiple treatments on that hamstring strain. That's become a chronic issue for him over the last few years. They are still going to be without Zion Williamson for a considerable amount of time.
And now things haven't gotten much better. But the problem is, typically there would be another fringe all-star or one-time all-star in the form of Brandon Ingram that could carry the load. This year, the Pelicans have reached a brand new low in terms of injuries. You see, Zion Williamson being injured is a dream scenario when you're trying to elevate Brandon Ingram's value, because historically, Brandon Ingram has played very well when Zion Williamson isn't around. And when you consider the fact that Ingram is in a contract year and the Pelicans are trying to find a person to trade for him, and Brandon Ingram wants to match.
You guys think that New Orleans should move on from BI? I mean, I don't know if
the problem is
because Brandon Ingram, he's not going to necessarily put value to at least championship pedigree, but I mean, he's still like a valuable or somewhat valuable piece that you can move in order to get at least some draft picks or some players back that you can then move again in a future trade down the line if New Orleans continues to struggle. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. But yeah, I don't think that he's probably going to be in their foreseeable future at this rate if this Zion Williamson saga continues to stretch out the way that it's playing out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Swap for the very strong 2025 NBA draft, and they opted to defer to next year, which is what you should do. But if they didn't do that, then they would have been in prime position to draft Dalton Connect, which would have been fantastic for them this year. And it's moves like this that put the Pelicans in the situation that they're in now. They are stuck with a bunch of star players whose value completely deteriorated, and the worst part of all is this is a team that needs to be sellers at the trade deadline. They need to blow it up. There is no hope for them this season anymore. They're currently 5-22. If you go on the Pelicans official injury report, Zion Williamson is expected to be out until December 30th. Brandon Ingram is expected to be out until January 3rd. But hey, at least they got DeJounte Murray back, I guess, right? I mean, he's been around for the last 4 games, contributing to their 4 L's in a row. But the worst part of all about all this is there's really a question about how much Zion loves the game of basketball. I mean, yes, he's only played in 6 games, and yeah, if you take a look at his numbers, you'd say, Mike, he's averaging 23 points and 8 rebounds and 5 assists per game, while shooting 45% from the field and 33% from 3. What's the problem? The thing is, when you're a player like Zion Latif Williamson and you only average about 1 3-pointer a game, which means most of your points come from the paint, and you've shot 59% from the field throughout your career, 45% from the field is terrible. On top of this, he's averaging the most turnovers he's ever had throughout his career. That combined with the fact that there's just way too much ground to make up for the Pelicans this season with all their injuries, and the only logical conclusion is to tank for Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, or Ace Bailey. All of those players are studs. I mean, you get into the top 3 of the NBA draft this year.
Yeah, Zion's got to be more efficient in the paint. If he's not going to be taking threes, you got to be more efficient in terms of your field goal percentage in the paint. So I mean, that's not good. If you're a New Orleans Pelicans fan, just watch him just be this inefficient from the field goal. So something's definitely wrong with Zion. So he definitely needs to take a step back and say, hey, do I seriously love the game basketball anymore if I'm just not going to be able to play to the level that I know that I can play at consistently? So you need to have that reflection, bro.
That includes Zion or Brandon Ingram or DeJounte Murray, maybe. The 3 players that are untouchable here are Herb Jones, Yves Missy, and Trey Murphy. Word is that the Pelicans are essentially open to trade pitches for pretty much anyone else on the roster apart from those 3 amid a 5-22 start and more injury woes than even Philadelphia. The Pelicans have built their roster around Williamson and Ingram, 2 players who have hardly played as running mates. The pair has played in just 159 games together of a possible 499 thanks to varying injuries. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you would think that teams would be lining up to trade for Zion Williamson, and Shams has already reported that teams were inquiring about trading for Herb Jones and CJ McCollum. And it's very difficult to pinpoint what Zion Williamson's value is currently, because when healthy, he is one of the best players in the NBA. Zion Williamson is like that 1979 Chevrolet Bel Air that your parents have in the garage. It's beautiful when you could drive it out and it works, but at any point you know that the wheels are going to come crashing down. He's played in less than 50% of the Pelicans games since being drafted, so Bobby Marks thinks that if you do move Zion Williamson, you can get expiring contracts and maybe a future first round pick, which is so crazy. When you just put it all together, I mean, this is a player that was a once in a generation type prospect. If you ever want to watch some exciting basketball, just go look at Zion Williamson Duke highlights. And it's just crazy because when you compare him to other athletes in sports, I mean, I cover football on a separate channel called Microphone. I mean, my evil twin brother does. And Ricky Pearsall was shot in the chest this summer and has played more football games this season than Zion Williamson. It's just absolutely crazy. So Bobby Marks pitches one very intriguing team, but it only works if Zion Williamson's value is truly what he says it is.
If you're looking for that next superstar that maybe has that upside, I think Williamson could be that guy if he's healthy.
Bro, like everybody's trying to go to Golden State. That's so crazy because it's just like,
give out and trade. Andrew Wiggins,
I guess Golden State has the pieces in order to make these work. Because first is Jimmy Butler, now it's Zion. So it's just like,
and then we're
I guess they have the pieces available in order to get these players, so it's just really interesting to see.
If you don't have to give up and you're looking for that potential all-star out there on a low risk there.
Look, if this is a Pelicans team that is truly done with Zion Williamson, this isn't a player that's going to fetch you multiple first-round picks. There's just way too much baggage that comes with trading for Zion Williamson. Ironically, Zion Williamson's value reminds me of another former #1 overall pick that had some bright moments, but eventually got labeled as a bust and was traded to the Golden State Warriors. And that was Andrew Wiggins. Coming out of the NBA draft, Andrew Wiggins was supposed to be the next coming of Tracy McGrady. And could we please, for the love of God, stop saying that these prospects are the next coming of stuff? And the frustrating thing is, the Minnesota Timberwolves did everything they possibly could to get the most out of Andrew Wiggins, and he had some bright flashes. Like earlier in his career, he had this incredible duel with the late great Kobe Bryant, where he went toe-to-toe with him. He averaged 23.6 points per game in his third year. I mean, this man was well on his way to fulfilling his potential, and then Jimmy Butler came and f***ed it all up. No, seriously, his numbers declined once the Timberwolves traded for Jimmy Butler. It's something that we could have never expected. The Timberwolves never fulfilled their potential with Wiggins. His numbers dipped from nearly 24 points per game in year 3 to 17.7 points per game in year 4, and then 18 points per game in year 5 before they decided to trade him in year 6 to the Golden State Warriors in return for D'Angelo Russell. The Warriors pretty much turned him into the modern day prototypical two-way wing, and he won a championship with the Warriors.
I just hope that Andrew's able to still play up to that level that he was at, like that earlier 21, on that 21 age. Because I mean, he did show some flashes in Minnesota, but I just don't think that they really were able to truly get it all together as of yet, because I don't think he was still like a consistent outside shooter. So I mean, I still think that he has potential in the NBA though to be at least a good 3-and-D piece for Golden State, but it'll just be interesting to see if he's at least able to live up to some of the #1 draft potential that he had, #1 pick draft potential that he had back in 2015.
And get D'Angelo Russell. They had to give up Andrew Wiggins.
2014, I forget the year, bro. It's around the year 2014, 2015. I'm pretty sure it's 14, but yeah.
Gauging Zion Williamson's value here. And it gets way worse. If you want to dive into his weight issues, then we have a completely separate video on it. We have separate videos on his crazy personal escapades with the women that he likes to go out with. It seems like he's not locked in on basketball at all whatsoever. I'm gonna leave some videos for you guys in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.
All right, man. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Excellent video by the Flight Mike. Just gonna say this to end it off. Just hope Zion's able to stay on the court and stay healthy. Because if he is, he's at least like a top 20, at least a top 25 player in the NBA. I mean, he's just absolutely a monster in the paint. But he just needs to be able to stay focused and just stay on the court. But if you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next one. All right, man. Peace out.